and welcome to Overlanders Then and Now. I'm Jim King.
And I'm Tom Bingle.
So today we're going to revisit one of our quick stops, this one in the staid city of Vienna after our time in the freewheeling city of Munich. We're also going to talk about our blatant and fortunately successful attempt to piggyback on the Notre Dame name to score a free meal and a place to sleep for the night in Innsbruck, Austria.
Yeah. Ooh.
Before that,
Mhm.
though, my friend here wants to add some thoughts about a man we mentioned in our last video, Joe Dowd. So take it away, Biggs.
Yeah, Jimmy, Joe Down, he stayed near the forefront of both of our memories. A great
Definitely.
guy, older
Definitely.
man, old enough to be one of our fathers, but certainly was younger than we are now. He was a World War II veteran,
Hmm.
who had lost a leg. Not sure if it was from the war. But he
Right.
was so supportive, Jim, so supportive of what we were doing, and it was such great to hear it. And the one word, absorb, has stuck with me all those years, and it was excellent back then and now. Don't you think, Jimmy? I mean,
Absolutely. 100%.
yeah.
In fact, thanks to my son, Dan, I've been, reading some Eastern philosophy over the past couple of years, particularly Buddhism. And this idea
Uh-huh.
of absorbing that we only have this one moment to us.
Yeah.
And therefore,
Yeah.
we
Interesting.
should, go for the gusto and absorb that moment. Not the
Yeah.
Buddha's words, but, it's such a powerful concept. I often think of Joe when facing a decision that may be putting me a little bit outside of my comfort zone, you know?
Interesting, Jimmy. Yeah,
Mm.
and bloody, when you're traveling, there's tons of those decisions.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Even now, since I, still do a bit of traveling, I have to remind myself, Doc, to stop worrying about this, that, and just absorb the moment. Yeah, Jimmy, I must note there was a certain note of sadness to his encouragement, kind of
Yeah.
and I just didn't know if you picked up on that. It almost was like he was highlighting geez, don't make the same mistakes that I did in life,
Yeah. Yeah. It did seem that way. I think we mentioned that last time as well because it made such an impression on us.
Yeah.
Very, very poignant scene. We saw him
Hmm.
on the train platform, limping rather heavily along, but then
Yeah.
suddenly he
Yeah.
stopped and stretched his arms out and, greeted the Frau of the family he was
Yeah.
visiting. Very touching. Very
Yeah,
touching.
Jimmy, by far one of the sadder partings of our journey, that him limping there. But his advice to absorb always brings a smile. Well, thank you,
Definitely.
Joe Dowd. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Ditto from me, Joe, wherever you may be. Now, Binks, Vienna waits for you.
Ooh, Jim, a Billy Joel reference, I think. Jimmy, thanks. Was that song out when we were taking in the sights of Vienna?
Oh, I have no idea. I think maybe later, but
Yeah, yeah, maybe,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
no. Let me ask you this, Binks. Did Vienna strike you? Apologies to the Viennese, but did it strike you as kind of boring?
Well, Jimmy, I have to admit, maybe after being overserved in the Munich beer halls, we were surprised by the less raucous, atmosphere, Jimmy. It was a bit of a challenge to leave the positive Munich, the energy of Munich, and holy moly, however, Doc, I'll never forget walking down the Ringstrasse. Now we're in near Vienna's inner city.
Yeah.
We encountered, Jimmy, what seemed like one regal palatial palace or site after
Yeah.
another. It was unbelievable, Jim. Yeah, now you want me to name the buildings we visited, Doc?
Oh, I have no doubt you could name them all. So, but please don't. Well, I shouldn't say that, but maybe focus on just one or two and what it means to you today. Go ahead.
Not just one. Well, Jim, too well to suggest it. But it was amazing, Doc, on the
Yeah.
Ringstrasse that kind of covered, circled this inner city. You had their city hall, you had their parliament for their country, that
Yeah.
was there, Doc. It was unbelievable. They had the Hofburg Palace with the crown jewels,
Right.
Jim, right next door. Then, okay, you have the famous Natural History Museum, then the Kunsthistorisches, and at the end of it, it's the Staats Opera House. So anyhow, Jim.
Huh.
But Jimmy, I guess today I'm particularly proud of the fact, this is fascinating, that I was able to persuade you to join me on a tour of the Hofburg Palace, where they're crown jewels, and later the Schönbrunn Palace, just an
Yeah.
S-Bahn, stop out and gardens. I think you had said something, Jimmy, one more castle, and I'm going to throw myself into the nearest river, which in case was the Danube now,
Right,
the
right.
Danube now. But I
I
didn't
was
hear too
ready.
much complaining, Jimmy, as we wandered, about the Schönbrunn and the Gloriette Arch and these beautiful sculptured gardens.
No, you,
Spectacular.
yeah, you didn't hear me complaining because you were too busy chatting up the staff on other tours. But I have to say, it's true. I mean, the Schönbrunn proved to be a
Yeah.
much better choice than diving into the Danube. I mean, the tour was fascinating, but it was also a little embarrassing for me because it made me realize how little I knew about European
Mm.
history.
Uh,
Yeah, when preparing for this video, I checked my journal and I had written down that I wish I actually read Palmer and Galton's textbook on the history of Europe,
we
which I
got,
lugged
yeah.
around campus one semester, stormed the class and library is a huge book. But
Uh-huh.
it just seemed to me that most of the Europeans we met knew a surprising amount of American history.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Good
we
point.
were,
Yeah.
well, I'll speak for myself, not we, I was, uneducated when it came to many of the historical sites we were visiting. And I'm not blaming the schools I went to. I had every opportunity to learn more, you know.
Well, Jimmy, the university attendant would have frowned upon spending a Saturday afternoon in the Touchdown Jesus Library studying, the Habsburg Empire if a football game was being played in the stadium, Jimmy. But but you raise a good point, Doc. Very good point, Jimmy. I think it's now I have been very lucky and fortunate in my career in travel had forced me to kind of dive deeply into the history of the places that was visiting.
Right.
And also, Doc, I use history as my platform for kind of diving into what we're going to go see and kind of get a feel for an area. And Jimmy, I loved every minute of it. Loved every minute.
Oh, I know that comes through definitely. So, other than convincing me to hit the palaces, any lessons from Vienna for you?
Jimmy, I don't know. I agree with you that after Munich, Vienna was a much different experience.
Right.
I guess for me, it was another example of how much better the Europeans were at in designing, these center cities,
Yeah.
around people, not around automobiles. And I love their pedestrian zone. Vienna had one, an excellent one on the Kartener Strasse, which ended up in beautiful in the St. Stephen Platz. Unbelievable. But that was great, Jim, because that Kartener Strasse was lined with pastry shops
Oh, yeah.
filled with torts. That's
Mhm.
not the legal subject, torts. It was Tortes and something I didn't know anything about, back in Toledo, torts, Jimmy.
Oh, they're delicious. Didn't we stop for one?
Yeah, Jimmy, a Viennese coffee and a tort in a wood-paneled cafe.
Ah,
It felt
perfect.
quite sophisticated and regal, Jim. Kind of worthy of the shirt that I'm wearing here, like the city itself. The streets were clean. The shopkeepers intent on on keeping, the sidewalks clean. And Jim, it was so unbelievable, unbelievable. It was so cool to walk past a building. You ready? On one of these side streets to see a plaque stating that a young Amadeus Mozart once performed there. Oh, and speaking
Yes.
of musical geniuses, Jimmy, I'm surprised that you weren't recognized when, we visited by the home of the Vienna Boys Choir. Now, Jimmy, come on, weren't you the lead guitarist in a rock band back in Lakewood, Ohio?
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Sorry, Jimmy.
As a matter of fact, I was. The zenith of our
Uh-huh.
fame was when we played our entire
Yeah.
repertoire of
Uh-huh.
3 or 4 songs at our eighth grade dance. The band broke up soon after that gig, though, due to creative differences.
Okay.
They were creative and I wasn't. No. But your memory of that is an
Yeah, Jim.
example of one of the benefits, in this case, consequence of traveling with someone. You really get to know
Yeah.
someone,
Interesting.
even their
Yeah.
distant past. Anyway, back to the topic at hand, Binks. Vienna.
Okay, okay. Jimmy, one thing that stays with me most is seeing, this is fascinating. I can remember also, Jimmy, it was starting to get a little bit, darker earlier, like around
Yeah.
3:30,
Yep.
but as we were further east, but seeing all the road signs, Jim, pointing the way, are you ready for this? Budapest.
Hmm.
Budapest, Hungary. hungry, Jimmy. My gosh, it really brought home to the fact that, you know what? Hey, we're a long way away from Ohio. We're a long way from home and very much on our own. And Jimmy, ooh, that was a shock. It was exhilarating, Jimmy. Really exhilarating. And
Yeah.
I wanted more, Doc. Wanted
Yeah, me
more.
too. Me too. Definitely more. Yeah, and that came in the form of our next stop, which was Innsbruck,
Ooh, ooh,
home of the
yeah.
64 and 76 Olympics, right?
Oh, Jimmy Innsbruck, Innsbruck. I believe my buddy Jean-Claude Killy, who kind of dominated the sports world in the late 60s, but raced in Innsbruck in 1964 and in preparation for his 1968 triumphs of three gold medals at least. So,
Yeah, I remember watching that on ABC Wide World of Sports with Jim
uh-huh.
McKay,
Yep.
right? But
Yes,
I think more
Jimmy.
importantly for us at the time, Innsbruck was the home of one of Notre Dame's study abroad programs,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah, Jimmy. Yeah, right. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right. And we were hoping, to kind of use that ND connection to secure some maybe free food and lodging. Except we didn't know anybody enrolled in the program.
right.
So, and Jimmy, I have to say, after all those years, and no offense meant, Jimmy, that I thought your plan to find a domer in Innsbruck was kind of ridiculous. But
Yeah, it was. It was.
Jimmy, all right, come on, let me set the scene, Doc. I'll never forget. It's November. It's cold. It's
Yeah.
cold. It's snowing. And Jimmy pulled on a Notre Dame t-shirt, and left his jacket open as he walked around town. Unbelievable. One of the students enrolled, in the program, noticed the t-shirt, found out we were recent grads, and the next thing you know, we were eating a hot meal, Jimmy. I can always
Mm.
remember. It
Yeah.
was like chicken, with hot rice chicken. Oh, and 4 or 5 sophomores and even offered a place to sleep for the night, Jimmy. Your crazy plan worked, Doc. And the students were great. But
Oh, yeah.
Jimmy, that was fascinating. The one interesting thing they were saying that it seemed that their sophomore year, the studies were less rigorous, excuse me, than their sophomore year if they would have stayed at Notre Dame in South Bend. But
Hmm.
in a way, Doc, they were definitely getting a much more rounded education, unbelievable, in one of the prettiest cities in the world. Unbelievable.
Yeah. I think one of the best types of education you can
Yeah.
get. I kind of wish I had done that,
Mhm.
when we were at Notre Dame. But, speaking of pretty cities, I just remember the moment we stepped out of the railroad station. It was cold, as you said, and snowing, but when we stepped out, there were the
Oh,
Alps,
yeah. Yeah.
snow-capped and all. Yeah,
Yeah.
I froze,
Yeah.
literally. I had never seen mountains, real
Yeah.
mountains, never seen the Rockies or anything like
I'll
that.
be,
And the view
mhm.
was stunning.
Yeah,
I
Jimmy.
remember thinking, even though I
Yeah.
hadn't really seen anything of the town yet, that I could live here.
Yeah, Jimmy,
You know?
absolutely, Doc. Another storybook setting. I thought we heard Julie Andrews kind of singing in the hills or live or something.
No, no, that was you, which caught the attention of many passersby. But
Jimmy, I was inspired. Good description, Jimmy, coming out of that. That was amazing. The Alps. And there was more inspiration ahead for us as our next stop was going to be back in Bavaria, another
right.
area of the Alps, but with the highlight being the town of Oberammergau, James.
Yes, yes. We hurried out of Austria after only a couple of days, but I think we were feeling some time pressure.
Yes. Yeah, Jimmy, yes, yes. So much to see in our remaining month now. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? On the year-round pass. So little time. Well, so everyone watching, thank you. And until next time,
Guten
Guten
Tag,
Tag,
everyone.
everyone.
Not even
All
close.
right.